The general principle is that information is key. It works everywhere and for everyone in the United States, mainstream Americans and minorities, across the country and in different cities. Here are the 10 steps. 1, use evidence-based approaches. Let me say that a little more colorfully. Stop making things up in the domain of public education. Stop doing that. You can do this based on science. All public education and information campaigns are not equal. More could be accomplished if we redesign them and distribute public readiness information that uses research-based evidence about how to make those campaigns effective. Step 2, stop doing things that don't work. Don't try to motivate the public with increased probabilities. People certainly need to be aware of unknown hazards, and increased probabilities may be useful for many things in other audiences, but increasing perceived risk does not motivate the public, does not predict public preparedness, mitigation, action taking. Get it? It may be the way you sell seismic resistant designs or flood control work to a community at the community level, but it's not the way you're going to sell flood insurance, is what I would hypothesize. Step 3, use multiple information sources. Provide information from as many different sources as possible, regardless of who you are. You alone can't provide very effective public information. You need partners to really be effective. The more partners, the more success, the more sources, the more the public does. Step 4, brand the message. It's about them, not you. Brand the message, not the messenger. In other words, having public information from organization A and public information from organization B and public information from organization C is in the interest of the organization, not in the interest of who you're communicating to. Stop doing that. Convince groups, including your own, to stop providing unique messages. Work with other information providers so everyone tells the public the same thing. Branded readiness messages work best. Step 5, use multiple information channels. Distribute the same information over many diverse communication channels. People do more when they get the same information in different ways. And it looks like this. So let me tell you what it looks like. When you eat your last French fry at McDonald's and you see the grease on the little placemat on top of the plastic tray, it should talk about this. When the kids come home from school, they should be carrying a coloring book where they color blue the flood. When you open the newspaper, there should be flood tip for the day. When you're on the internet, somebody should be flashing something about floods. When you bring your grocery bags home, they should be saying something about floods, etc. Multiple channels of communication. Step 6, communicate over the long haul. It's better to communicate over time, not just for a day of a week. People do more after receiving the same message many times. And it's best if communication is sustained over extended periods of time, and even better if it's ongoing and doesn't end. Step 7, focus provided information on actions. The most effective thing to say to motivate people to prepare and mitigate is what they should do to prepare and mitigate. Sometimes things are so obvious it just hits you in the face. You want the American public to mitigate, you've got to tell them what it is they should do to mitigate. You want them to prepare, tell them what to do to prepare. And where they can find out more about how to do it. Step 8, explain consequence reduction. It's about consequence reduction. The actions is about consequence reduction. It's not about understanding the risk, assessing probabilities, assuming human beings are rational, which they're not. Rationality was a myth invented by my ancestors during the Renaissance in Florence. Human beings are not rational. People are more likely to take actions if information explains how those actions can cut their losses in the event something happens. And step 9, and this is the big ticket item, position cues for people to see. Get public preparedness and mitigation out of the closet and in the streets. People are more likely to take actions they see others doing. Monkey see, monkey do applies. A few days ago, Howard Kunrather told me a story about an interview he did with 2 people sitting in a carport, in a car, in a rainstorm. And he and his colleagues went up to do the interview, and Howard asked, "Do you have flood insurance?" And the guy said, "Nah." He said, "Do you want flood insurance?" "Nah, it doesn't flood here." The story went something like this. The guy sitting next to him said, "Oh, I have flood insurance." The other guy said, "You do?" He said, "Yeah." He said, the other guy said, "Well, I think I'm going to call my guy and get it." That's the monkey see, monkey do phenomenon. And 10, target talking. Encourage people to talk about preparing and mitigation with others just for a fleeting moment. Imagine if who you targeted were the people who had flood insurance, not the people who don't. And if you enrolled them as your partners, to tell people in their lives who don't have flood insurance that they have it. And we could extend what Howard observed on a rainy day in a carport to the nation. In other words, why not target those who already have it rather than the ones who don't, and have them help us be our partners, since that's the most effective route to changing behavior. In other words, use innovative ways to get people talking about preparedness and mitigation with others. And last, evaluate. Measure your starting place, get a baseline of public preparedness, measure changes. Is public preparedness and mitigation changing over time? Evaluate program effectiveness about what information component works best and what's not working, and change the program.